seconds remaining. Are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rolo the Puerto Rican Pistolero coming to you live from Miami, Florida, which, unlike the rest of the state, as you can hear, I've got the weather radio going on in the background, is thankfully not suffering too much from the wrath of Hurricane Milton right now. We'll start with the latest advisory here, the 6 p.m. advisory. For those that you are not familiar with hurricanes, typically you have advisories in pretty much the 1s and the 5s. So that would be p.m. Eastern time when a storm is a few days away. And as the storm starts approaching landfall, you will get advisories every hour on the hour, sometimes 5 minutes before, typically, actually. So this one came by here at 5:55 p.m. Eastern time. And, thankfully, this morning we were looking at a 160 mile per hour, pretty hefty Category 5 hurricane. Since coming towards the shore here on the Gulf Coast, it has dropped down to 120 miles per hour as it approaches landfall in the Sarasota area, which is just south of Tampa Bay. This is going to be a little bit of a different stream than I usually do. I'm obviously not a meteorologist or a weather person by any means. I'm an engineer by education and a political and gaming streamer as a hobby here. But I do have access to some pretty cool tools that you would, if you watch WeatherTube, as we call it, that a lot of those streamers have access to. So I don't know how many people will watch today. I know that a lot of you are probably watching the Weather Channel, Fox Weather, channels like Ryan Hall or Reed Timmer. So I'll just kind of bring some of the things that I've seen while we get rid of the cat because she's going crazy over here. So give me a second. The coffee has already been poured. So we'll probably be here for a couple of hours. We'll see how things go as the storm makes landfall, and we'll check those reports. So the cat is gone. I've got the weather alert radio in the background. It's good to see Grand Duke here. It's raining a lot. I'm not sure where Lutz is located in Florida. I'm not familiar with that. It's something we can search for. Now, what we will do today is, again, this is the latest advisory right here from the National Hurricane Center. How's it going? We've got Carla, the mod extraordinaire, who's been providing a lot of the updates here for us in the background. I will call her out because she's amazing when it comes to this stuff. And she's actually the one that's really gotten me a lot more educated on a lot of these tools and the weather and different sources. So shout out to her as usual. She's always doing great work here in the chat with you guys. We've got the Grand Duke. He's here in Florida, I'm guessing. So I am on the east coast of Florida in Miami, Dade County. So, which in the past historically always seems to be the part of Florida that would get hit by storms. You know, we had Hurricane Andrew, Irma, Felix, some very powerful Category 4 and 5 storms that have passed near this region over the years. Hurricane Irma came through the Florida Keys in 2017. I was down here for that. But again, depending on where you are located with the hurricane, you'll get some pretty different effects. And I think the most surprising thing that I've seen, just as somebody who has lived around these for so many years, being in both Florida, South Carolina, and Puerto Rico in my lifetime, is just, it almost feels like each storm has its own personality. And you really never know what you're going to get. It depends on which side of the which side you're getting hit by, whether it's the east or west side. It depends on the size of the storm. Obviously, the category value and the wind speed is a massive factor. but it also depends on if you're going to get storm surge, if you're near the coast, if you're inland. These are all factors that affect things. And I think with what we saw with Helene, barely 2 weeks ago, a lot of us didn't know what to expect with Milton, and we still don't know what the full effects of Milton are going to be. I'm going to bring up the radar here. This is called Radar Omega, which is an amazing piece of software. You can download this. Confucius, I'm an electrical engineer by trade, but I work with computers is my day job. So I haven't really utilized my engineering degree to its fullest. But they say if you can get your engineering degree, you can do anything. So that's kind of where I've gone. So I've ended up being more of a tech nerd over the years, and that's how I got into streaming and all of that. And obviously, most of you know me from my Second Amendment advocacy and all of that. Yes, thankfully, Dengar Renegade, I am fine. I'm located in pretty much, if we bring out the radar here, let's check out KTBW. So like I was saying here, this is Radar Omega, which is an incredible piece of software. It's subscription based, not expensive. You can get the premium version for like $12 a month. There's no sort of commitment or anything like that. So if you're a weather enthusiast, if you're somebody who's concerned during hurricane season or anything like that and really want to track how these storms work and how they may affect you in real time, this is a fantastic piece of software. So here we can see the entire state of Florida. You can see hurricane watches and warnings in effect, the storm surge map, and really where most of the state is being affected. So as I said, I'm in Miami, which has been very fortunate. We can go back in time a few hours here, and you can see how this storm has pretty much evolved throughout the day from when it came on shore earlier and how it is now. So starting at around noon, you can see that we had a lot of huge bands coming offshore on the southwestern portion of the state. And as time went on, a lot of these bands started moving across the state, easterly across the state. And I think what shocked me, and I'm not sure if it shocked a lot of people, is that it really seemed, obviously because it's going to hit the west coast of Florida around south of the Tampa Bay area. So we can see right here, this would be Tampa Bay. And if anybody has any specific questions, if you have family members in Florida, friends, anybody that you care about, what city they're in or the region, if you don't want to dox anybody, we can check it out and we can kind of see how conditions are there on the radar. We can even check tornado watches and warnings right here. And this will let us know we've got flash flood warnings. Right now, there are 4 tornado warnings in effect. Earlier today, there were almost as many. I believe 19 was the peak that we saw. And there have already been something like 70 or 80, more than 80 tornadoes. Oh, sorry about that. I think we lost the stream there for a second. I should be back here. Okay. Yeah, it looks like we're back. Okay. So one of the things that's really surprised me about this storm, sorry about that. I had so many live streams in the background watching that I forgot to close that my own stream got affected. So, yeah, I had to close those down. I had like Fox Weather, I had Ryan Hall and all these other different channels going on in the background because I'd been watching them all day. So, like I was saying, the interesting thing that we saw is that as you see these bands moving across the state, this is from a time period of around noon to now at real time, which is 6:10 p.m. Eastern time, is that these big bands and these big storm cells that you can see in red and orange really were affecting the East Coast, and especially the area north of West Palm Beach, going all the way up to about Sebastian or Melbourne. And you can see the little lightning strike indicators that are going all along. Those are, very powerful storm cells that were spawning a massive amount of tornadoes. And I just really don't think many people expected that, especially not in the East Coast of Florida, because obviously all week we saw that the forecast track was going to take it. This is the cone, the infamous cone that you can see right here highlighted in red going across Central Florida. We really thought that this was going to be almost exclusively a Central Florida storm, especially when you look at the wind fields and things like that. But these These bands that have been going across the state from the western side to the eastern side have been spawning tornadoes, and a lot of them have been ending up on the eastern coast of the peninsula. So one of the big concerns that I've had is, we know that if you've been watching the news, millions of people were evacuating the state all at once from the Tampa Bay area and some parts of central Florida. And presumably most of those people would have gone north and probably across the state. We know that Hurricane Helene made landfall at around here, this area, Perry, in between Tallahassee and Perry, and made its way up, obviously, through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, near the Asheville area, which we've seen the devastation there if you've been watching the news, and then kind of dissipated and rotated back as a tropical depression, or the remnants of a tropical storm over Knoxville. And we saw the devastation that caused with the mudslides, with the rivers cresting, the flooding, some of the wind damage. At that point, it was not a hurricane. So we really weren't sure what to expect here, but Milton is just acting in a completely different way from Helene, and it really is spawning a lot of tornadoes. We still have a few tornado watches in effect. There are 4 active right now. You can see, like I said, in St. Lucie, Martin counties, which this software will let us check out where that is, and then we can kind of get an idea of what may be going on. So if we go back to real time and we switch through our different radar modes, we're able to actually see tornadoes as they spawn in real time. And you can see the circulation on radar. So if we switch over here, I'll go ahead and show you. This is some pretty fascinating stuff that you will actually be able to see, depending on which radar you choose, what a tornado would look like. So out here, these are probably water spouts that you're seeing, these red spots here. And you can kind of see how on radar they'll start circulating and spinning around. So let's bring this back a few frames here, and you'll be able to really see that. So you can see that they spawn a lot of lightning. You can see the circulation on the radar, and those are indicators of, in this case, it would be water spouts because they're off the coast. If they were inland, that would be more indicative of a tornado. So some of the videos that we've been seeing are absolutely fascinating and downright, honestly, they're horrifying. And my concern really is that a lot of people on the east coast of Florida most likely did not think that they were going to have the same effects from this storm. But this really is a statewide event that has been going on here. And really the only area that has been spared is the very South Florida, very deep south of the Florida Peninsula. So that's where I'm located. I can tell you I've been seeing the bands going across all day, but it has barely dropped any rain. And it is one of the most bizarre experiences that I've had going through a hurricane, where you can see the high altitude clouds. You can see nasty bands going across. You can see them moving at like 30, 40 miles per hour above ground level. But on the ground level, we've had maybe, 30 mile per hour gusts down here. And we have had almost zero rain. And it is absolutely eerie and bizarre. But just, maybe anywhere between 40 miles to the north or west of us, there have been tornadoes dropping down all day. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to hold true as the storm makes landfall, which it appears, according to the radar, that this is going to happen any moment. We can see the center of circulation is out here right now, and it is making its way up. So it's extremely bizarre. I've never seen anything like this, and I'm not really sure what the extent of the damage will be when this is all said and done. So it's just something to really, really, really be fascinated by. I've never seen anything like this. And I don't know if we will again. A storm that just started off so strong, was at 185 miles per hour before it made landfall when it was churning through the Gulf of Mexico. It's now dropped to around 120 miles per hour prior to landfall. The pressure's increased a lot. And really what we're left to see here is going to be what the storm surge effect is going to be. We've seen a lot of tornado warnings and tornadoes drop in the Central Florida area. I haven't seen too much about that, so I don't know how the parks are doing or anything like that. It's pretty fascinating because those of you that have been following me for a while know that I used to live in Central Florida. I really don't have any problem saying where I used to live now because I don't live there anymore. And it was, kind of in around this area, and all day you can see kind of the storm activity that was spawning in that area. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm pretty happy that I don't live there anymore because it looks like a lot of the rain, the flooding, all of that has been pretty severe throughout the day. And you can see a lot of the huge storm cells that have just dropped and spawned all day in that area. So again, this is kind of a different stream. It's very impromptu. I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm using a lot of the tools that they are using. So you can see the massive amount of rainstorms that came across in the earlier bands at around, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. till 4 p.m., all in this Orlando area. If you're interested in knowing where the parks are, Disney World is right here, where I've got my cursor right now. Downtown Orlando itself is about northeast of there. Universal Studios is in between, so is SeaWorld. There's a lot of huge nature preserves there. If you're interested in knowing any other locations, over here near Titusville is where Cape Canaveral is. So obviously where we launch most of our rockets. SpaceX has does a lot of Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches there. Obviously where the NASA program is headquartered, for the most part, at least Cape Kennedy, as we say, the Kennedy Space Center on Merritt Island. I know people that live on the island as well. I went there to watch rocket launches when I used to live in Central Florida. So I know most of the eastern coast of Florida fairly well. I know the West Coast as well. I've done a lot of traveling by car for my job. My day job, I have a lot of different clients throughout the state. So that's going to be a big concern going forward, especially in Central Florida. How many people are going to lose power? How many people may have flood damage? When Helene passed by, the storm surge was about 7.5 feet when it passed near the West Coast. And that was already historic storm surge for the Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg area. In areas like Treasure Island, a lot of those houses are losses because even if you can't see physical wind damage, when you have water going about 6 feet into your house, that's considered a total loss. So how's it going? Let's say hello to the chat. We've got Elias, Confucius, Dengar, Renegade, Kyo Saber, Novella Princess, Grand Duke. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, this is a different type of stream. It's more of we're covering Hurricane Milton. As I said earlier, I am down in South Florida in Miami-Dade County. So we're very fortunate here. It's been bizarre that all day we've seen clouds pass by, but it's basically been cloudy, sunny, and almost zero rain whatsoever. I know that a lot of the I know a lot of people evacuated down here. The gas stations we haven't run out of gas down here. Gas prices are actually pretty low, less than $3 a gallon, which for South Florida it's really good, actually. So like somewhere in the $2.90 range per gallon. So none of those prices have gone up. I haven't seen any price gouging or anything like that in this region. And, but I have seen that people did take this storm seriously. I think with everything that happened with Hurricane Helene and how abysmal and downright treacherous the federal government response has been, people weren't prepared to take any chances with this storm anywhere. Even though it was never forecast to make its way down to South Florida, people here really did not want to be caught flat-footed after what they'd seen from FEMA and the federal government at large. And obviously, we've seen the debacle that we've on TV that Kamala Harris has been lately, embarrassing herself and frankly embarrassing the United States as a whole, talking about giving aid to Lebanon and other countries while we have Americans suffering and dying in the Appalachian region of the Southeast. And I know I was very concerned about the fact that we're getting two of these hurricanes in a row. And we already know that FEMA is tapped out. They transferred more than $1 billion. I believe it was $1.1 billion to illegals, for different welcome centers, detention centers, and things like that. I talked about it a little bit on my last stream, which was, a regular Rolo's Rant stream. If you want to go, you can catch that. That was from last Thursday. And so Ron DeSantis, essentially, I like to say, he became the president of the Southeast for about a week because the Florida National Guard was mobilized. We were lucky with Helene that only a very small portion of the state was affected. And it seems like, even though certain areas like Cedar Key were utterly devastated by the storm surge, there were massive losses in Clearwater and St. Pete beaches. We didn't have the same type of devastation and, the amount of deaths in Florida that we would have expected. So despite all that, we were getting ready. But Florida, we had the opportunity. Governor DeSantis was able to send large elements of the Florida State Guard to other states. He mobilized that. We saw the debacle and the embarrassment of Roy Cooper, who's the Democratic governor of North Carolina, and their abysmal response, basically taking almost a week to mobilize their National Guard. The Florida State Guard was there. And Ron DeSantis and Floridians were sending a lot of aid up north. So it really sucks that now we're going through this and that we're seeing a lot of the devastation from these, really the tornadoes, first of all, and we'll start seeing the storm surge here probably in the next half an hour or so as Milton makes landfall in the Sarasota area. And it's terrible that now we have to refocus our efforts here in Florida because we don't know what the full effects are going to be. Now, it's good that it's dropped down to a category 3, but we know that it's built momentum for days here with the storm surge. I know that there's supposedly some buoys that have seen waves as high as 28 feet off the west coast of Florida. We're going to see storm surge on both sides of Florida as time goes on, because you can see the way that it works is as you have the circulation, which goes counterclockwise, this is pulling everything upward. So you're pulling all of the water from kind of the southwest portion of the storm, and it's going into all of these little bays that you see here all along the western coast of Florida, going up from Marco Island, Cape Coral and Fort Myers, Port Charlotte, Sarasota, and then St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay itself. So depending on which side of the storm you're on, that's going to make a big difference, because you're either going to be on the inflow side with all the winds and water getting pulled in and pushed out towards, in this case, the coast, or you'll be on the outflow side, and that'll be pulling more of it away. And I believe that the tide is also coming in at around this time. So you're going to get a tide which is probably, maybe 3 feet normally, combined with a storm surge that's somewhere like 10 to 13 feet in certain areas. So we probably won't know the full extent of the damage until tomorrow morning. Thankfully, it looks like it's forecast to drop to a category 1 as it goes across central Florida. But that could still be anywhere up to, 110 mile per hour or 100 mile per hour winds in a lot of cases with higher gusts. So that's something to be concerned about. But it's better news than what we saw earlier, which was a category 2 or 3 going across the entire state. So thankfully that won't be the issue going forward. But as I stated before, tornadoes have been a huge problem. And I've got some footage that we've seen throughout the day here. And you can just see here from AccuWeather, we have a lot of different videos. This is a massive tornado that went across Fort Pierce. Fort Pierce is, let's bring up the map here. Fort Pierce is all the way on the other side of the state. It's around this area. And we can see that Fort Pierce area is still getting pummeled by a lot of these massive cells. You can see the lightning activity that we're seeing here right now. That we saw earlier today. We'll have the radar go forward. this entire region, Vero Beach to Fort Pierce, has just been getting shellacked the entire day as these bands come across the shore. And it is absolutely crazy. Like I said, I think a lot of people on this side of Florida, especially the further south we go, did not expect this to happen. And I have to assume that a lot of people evacuated in this direction thinking that they were going to get away from the storm surge, only to now go, and deal with tornadoes. Tom is in the chat. I'm not going to dox Tom. If Tom wants to say where he lives, he can go ahead and say that. But he's had 2 tornadoes. We had tornadoes in Miami-Dade County much earlier in the day in the Homestead area out here and near I-75, which is here, Alligator Alley, near the Miccosukee Indian Reservation. So pretty much right here. So we had a couple earlier, but this is pretty far away from the main drag of the population centers in Florida. And for those of you that don't know Florida, essentially this interior area, this is all the Everglades. This is all swamp. It's a national park, multiple national parks. And ultimately, almost all of this interior area of South Florida is uninhabited. So, thankfully, any tornadoes that went through there weren't a concern. But as they were crossing I-75, which comes all the way from, the middle of or the northern portion of Miami-Dade, these yellow boundaries right here are county lines that you can see going up all through the state, and tornado watches and warnings. And we're seeing, how this area has basically been mostly unscathed, but it's really coming from Naples, Fort Myers, all the way to St. Lucie, Palm Bay, that area, and going up towards Titusville and pulling in. That's where we've been seeing a lot of these storms. We saw a lot of tornadoes here. Again, we were fortunate for part of the day because a lot of these areas are very sparsely inhabited. There are a lot of small towns, and unfortunately, there's a lot of, trailer parks and things like that, mobile home areas, I should say. So I'm concerned to see what's going to happen. I heard that Port St. Lucie's police department was shredded by a tornado. So let's go ahead and bring up some of the social media feeds there from FDOT. This is from AccuWeather. You can see this was that tornado that crossed past the highway. I'm guessing this is either... this is Interstate 95 right here. This is an utterly massive tornado. This looks like it's something probably like a quarter of a mile across at least. And again, this is something that a lot of people, a lot of normal people probably did not expect. And a hurricane really is a full performance of weather that we can get here. You're going to get massive lightning storms. You're going to get wind from the storm itself. It's essentially a massive tornado that's hundreds of miles across. Now, most of the wind field that you see doesn't necessarily have those hurricane force winds, but those bands that almost look like the arms of a galaxy, of a spiral galaxy coming across, spawn storms, and they create their own vortices as they go across, and those supercells drop tornadoes in their path. So that's really been the surprise, I'm sure, for a lot of people. It looks like this is the Hurricane Hunter earlier in the day, about an hour ago, going through the eye of the storm. Let's bring this up. If there's any sound, I'm not sure that there is for this particular video. But this is really what we've been seeing all day. And it's been fascinating. Here's Fort Myers, which is on the west coast of Florida, and some of the tornado damage. The storm had not even made landfall at this point. And it's just crazy what we're seeing.
Destroyed.
So we'll bring this up, and we've got a lot of different clips here.
Houses damaged here. Tornado damage right here, guys.
So this was just from, 2 or 3 hours ago that a lot of this was happening. And that's, way before the storm even got here. So it's crazy what we're already seeing in a lot of the areas that I'm sure
Tornado damage here in Fort
a-
Myers.
people were not expecting,
Big pull.
because it was further south and out of the path of the main storm and the eye. So here's a house right here in Fort Myers that got damaged.
I yelled for my wife to come look at it. It's cool. Kid, wife, come look at it.
God bless these
Started
people. They're
closing
okay.
trees, and we all started going for the hallway. Didn't even make it there in time. Started doop, and I heard a piece of glass crack and it sucked the whole roof off. And I felt the thing suck me up. And I grabbed my kid and my wife and hunkered down.
I mean, thank God that they survived there. I mean, look at this. This is, this is a total loss, of your possessions, of your house, and we've already seen that FEMA's not going to help you out here. They don't have the money. So hopefully everybody has insurance. A big problem that we're seeing in North Carolina and in West Tennessee or East Tennessee is that a lot of people don't have flood insurance, and we're going to see with the storm surge coming up on the West Coast here.
Kid, wife.
That is going to be a huge concern for a lot of people, that these houses are going to get destroyed. And now with some of the FEMA restrictions, these older houses are not up to hurricane standard. In Miami, Florida, if you've been here ever since Hurricane Andrew, which I believe was in 1994, crossed past the southern tip near Homestead, the standards in South Florida were increased. Houses had to be built out of concrete block. We have the Spanish ceiling tiles, which can handle winds at much higher speed than regular asphalt shingles. And, we have those higher standards. Now, because of Irma, Maria, and Harvey, what we saw was, because of catastrophic storm surge and Hurricane Michael here in Florida in the Panhandle area a few years ago, is that you're seeing storm surges of, 10 feet, almost 15 feet. Oh, Andrew was 92. Thank you, Commander, in the chat. We're seeing that. I appreciate you. That's a shout out to the mods and Commander and my younger brother. He's you guys can catch him on Geeks and Gamers Tabletop and on the gaming streams here every week. That's really where we're seeing the damage. So a concrete home with a secure roof is going to be okay for the most part, even going up, category 4 storms in a lot of cases, even possibly a category 5. But the storm surge is really what is devastating. And when you have a wall of water coming up at the velocities that we're seeing, with the volume that we're seeing, there are very few structures that can survive that. If you've seen some of the videos of what occurred during Helene and the flooding that they had there were homes that were cinder block homes, presumably built almost to the same standards of what we'd see here in South Florida, that were picked up off their foundations and taken down river with everybody inside of them. We're not going to know the extent of the death toll in Helene for probably weeks and months to come, just because of mudslides. This is what happened after Hurricane Maria. Initially, there was something like less than 100 deaths in Puerto Rico from Hurricane Maria, but the final death toll ended up being 2,900, almost 3,000 people that passed away there. And it was from storm surge, the rivers flooding, mudslides, and that mountainous terrain, which made it extremely difficult for rescues. And we're seeing similar effects in Appalachia. And of course, FEMA just really doesn't know what they're doing in these areas, and what they provide is a pittance. In Puerto Rico, we saw a lot of corruption with the local government. There were supplies that were sent there by the feds. And, months later, there were warehouses found with millions of dollars worth of supplies that were never distributed. Some of those supplies were stolen. So that contributed to a lot of the loss of life and discombobulation that happened there. Power was out for months, and for 6 months in some places in Hurricane Maria. I went there about 2 months after the storm, and one of my grandmothers, God rest her soul, she passed away a couple of years after that. She didn't have power for months. And she was on one side of the road, and on the other side of the road, they had power within a few weeks. So there was a huge disparity in the way that the damage was distributed in that storm, in the way that power came back. The power company in Puerto Rico is notoriously corrupt with the trade union there. I've heard some stories about it from people that have worked there, of not double overtime, not triple overtime. And we're not talking about a catastrophic situation, but quintuple overtime in some cases. So, and there are a lot of other things that affect Puerto Rico specifically. Like I said, the geography, it's 1,200 miles away from the mainland of the United States. If you hear that little whooshing sound in the background, that is, those are different alerts that are popping up and going away. It looks like all the tornado warnings, thankfully, have dissipated for now. We do still have flash flood warnings in effect for large portions of Florida. Some of them as soon as little as 23 minutes ago. And that's pretty much for all of the Central Florida counties that you guys know and love. Osceola, Polk, Orange, Brevard, Seminole, and Volusia. So that's pretty much all along the I-4 corridor in the path of the storm. Now, we call it the I-4 corridor because the Interstate 4 is the highway that stretches across the state from Daytona through Orlando, Lakeland, and Tampa Bay. You can see it running through the middle of the state. And so that is one of the most populous areas of the state. It's almost like it's kind of almost going to become a mega city at some point, I would say. And Milton's track runs just south and parallel to Interstate 4. And so you're going to see effects all along this range as it goes across. And as time goes along, the northern side of the storm is where you're seeing more of the rain. So as these bands keep coming ashore, I'm sure that we'll see more tornado warnings. The storm is weakening as it's about to make landfall. We can see here on radar how close it's getting. It looks like we're getting part of the eye wall going in there. We'll check Twitter here in a few minutes, and we should be able to see some of those bands coming on shore. Let's go to the larger radar here so we can kind of see the entire effect across the state. So you can see kind of a 3D model here that will show you kind of how high the cloud cover is going. We can go to individual radars to really see how things are being affected. This is Orlando radar right here out of MCO, which is the Orlando International Airport, and how some of those bands and local storms are kind of going up. So right now there is a bit of a lull as it's coming ashore. Let's go back to KTBW. So it looks like in Florida here, we've got two massive radars that have a range of about, it looks like 200 or 300 miles. And one is KTBW in Tampa Bay. The other one is KMLB on the Melbourne side near to Cape Canaveral. These two radars really give us a long range look of where the bands are going across. You can see that a lot of those storms that were causing tornadoes earlier in the day have moved offshore on the east coast of Florida, but they will probably, in all likelihood, they're going to be rotating back in, and we'll start seeing effects in Daytona Beach, Palm Coast, and Jacksonville. And this is where we'll see some storm surge on the eastern side of the peninsula. And I'm not sure how large the surge is going to be there. As the storm moves across the state, you'll see those effects increase. Right now, the concern is going to be the storm surge here on the western coast of the state. So let's go back here and check out some of those tornadoes that we saw earlier, some of the effects of it. This is all Fort Myers earlier in the day from some of that, from some of the tornadoes and bands that came across. And so again, not exactly what we were expecting. It really was not what we were expecting at first. And we can see more and more of that tornado damage and the effects on the ground from people's houses here.
Oh my God!
You can see transformers blowing as
Holy shit.
as these bands were coming in,
Go,
and these bands are bringing
Dale, let's go.
bringing up more. So yes, it did. Experiment 626. It did gain some momentum here.
Let's go. Come on.
I believe they projected the landfall
Dale,
time
let's go.
4 hours sooner
God.
than originally. So there's good and bad about that. Obviously, it's going to spend less time going across the peninsula as it goes
Dale,
through. So it'll have less time to drop water and to create floods. But that also means that you're going to get kind of a combined momentum. So as the storm moves forward, it's going to be pushing all of this water So I'll move like this because that's where the screen is. As it moves forward, it's with that eye wall, it's going to start pushing a lot of that water with it. So the higher the forward momentum of the storm is, the more of that water is going to go across. We'll probably get another update here in about 10 or 15 minutes for 7 p.m. For the 6 p.m. update, we'll go back to that. It was moving northeast at 15 miles per hour. Earlier this morning, and last night it was moving at around 9 miles per hour. So it has accelerated. It was at 16 earlier at one point that I saw. So it's kind of held at that 15, 16 mile per hour range. And that's why you're seeing it come on shore and make landfall now while there's still some daylight on that side of the state. So here it's, there's still a decent amount of daylight. It's a little bit overcast, but it's not too bad. So we can see a lot of the storm surge warnings here for the peak around Tampa Bay, 6 to 9 feet. Originally, they were expecting 15 to 20 had this come on shore as a 4 or a 5. Around Sarasota and Boca Grande, which is going to be this area right here, they're expecting 9 to 13 feet, which is going to be utterly devastating. It was 7.5 feet earlier for Helene. And again, I really don't know what to expect here as this comes on shore. When you're in the eye of the storm, you're going to get, as that eye wall comes ashore, you're going to see some pretty severe effects. You're going to see high wind speeds really pick up. And then you'll have a lull for about half an hour or so as you're inside the eye, because that's hollow. So it's a pretty bizarre experience if you've ever been inside one. And you just have this calmness where pretty much everything dies. And you can just see that circulation going around you at the edges. And then as the other side of the eye wall reaches ashore, then you get hit by it again. Now, as this goes through central Florida, Florida is not known for its mountains or anything like that, but there is a central hill ridge, I would say, here in this part of central Florida. So around Lakeland. Like I said, I used to live in that area. It's very hilly, and you can have elevation changes anywhere from 60 to, almost 250 feet above sea level. So it's a fortunate area. If you want the storm to weaken, that's probably why they've got it calculated as a category 1 around here. They're saying this around 2 a.m. So, I mean, it's still going to be, taking its sweet time going across here. So anybody that's in that area, a lot of the newer houses are, up to hurricane standards, but, a lot of central Florida is still houses that are made of wood and have normal shingles. So I'll be curious to see how they stand up to a high category 1 situation here. I'm sure that we'll see wind damage. I think it's been raining here because of a tropical depression that was in front of Milton for a few days, so the ground is very saturated. So that will make the ground weaker, muddier, and it'll result in more trees falling down. In large parts of Florida, our power infrastructure is underground. Our power cables, our fiber optic, internet, copper, all of that is. But in some of these more rural areas or areas that have not been damaged by storms in the past, there are still a lot of above ground power lines and data lines. So it is a concern that you will get power outages as this goes along. I would not be surprised if most of central Florida is without power for at least a couple of days here, maybe worse. I believe when it wasn't Irma, I believe when Wilma passed by I want to say it was in the early 2000s, 2005 maybe, if I'm not mistaken. There were a lot of houses that didn't have power for a couple of weeks, and they had blue tarps, and it took a long time to get those fixed. And it was down here in the South Florida area. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see something like that as a result of this storm going through areas that really have never been hit by a storm like this before. And obviously we've got the parks along this path, like I showed earlier. Disney is around up here. They've got a cell that's going across right now. We've got the airport over here. Universal Studios is right here. There at the center of the screen. So it'll be interesting to see how these parks get affected. We got SeaWorld right here in the middle. As you can see, this software is pretty amazing. It allows us to go all the way in, and we can kind of even take away the radar if we want, and see what that actually looks like at ground level. So I don't know how the parks will be affected. I can tell you that a few years ago, we just had remnants of a tropical storm. I think Ian passed through here, and the Incredible Hulk roller coaster was partially inundated underwater. The Jurassic Park River Adventure a building had a massive hole on the side of it, and this was from really nothing. So this storm will definitely cause, I would think, cause more damage than that, especially if these bands start producing tornadoes like we saw earlier on the east coast of the state. So let's go back to some of the video from earlier. Let's bring back the main radar as it comes across here. You can see that the eye is really starting to get closer now. And it looks like it's got a little bit of a wobble. So this is something that a lot of people have talked about, that as the storm starts nearing land, it will get off of its forecast track a little bit. So it's a little bit unpredictable as to where you're going to have that storm surge. If you were listening earlier, you'd like to be on the north side of the storm because it's going to be pulling that circulation. The storms here in the northern hemisphere go counterclockwise. If it was the southern hemisphere, they would go clockwise. One of the quirks of just the way that the planet works. So if you're south of it, it's pushing water in. If you're south of it and you're on the west coast of Florida, you're going to be getting that inflow. So it's going to be pulling water in. If you're on the north side of it, it's going to be pulling water out. If we were on the east coast of Florida, it would be different. So, and then typically when you're on the southeast side of the storm, that's called the dirty side. And you can see it's just a little bit more ragged. It's pulling in the wind. So that's worse than being on the outflow portion of it. But that's one of the weird things that you'll see also as you pass through the eye, if you happen to be in the eye of the storm, is the wind will shift direction on you when you get on the other side of the storm. So sometimes that can cause extra damage because now you're having structures get battered from two different directions within a few minutes span after the lull of that eye has stopped. So thank you, Good Wrench. I appreciate you. So Port St. Lucie, yes, as Commander indicated, is the location of one of the two major nuclear power plants here in Florida. And they were hit pretty hard. So that is a concern. Did any of those tornadoes hit the power station? Or could we be dealing with something that is like what happened in Fukushima after the tsunamis that hit Japan a few years ago, where they had a reactor meltdown? That's another story that people have not really talked about. So let's see where that power station is. Let's look it up. If you can give me that information, Commander, that would be great. I would appreciate that. So that's something else that we need to really look into. There we go. Port St. Lucie Nuclear Power Plant. There we go. The St. Lucie Nuclear Power Plant. Let's see where that is located right here. It would be interesting to find out. Okay, location. There we go. We can look for this on the map. And, usually you'll see nuclear power plants near the ocean because you want to be able to cool those reactors. Down here's actually a photo of the actual nuclear power plant for those that are interested in checking that out. It doesn't look like, and not necessarily the stereotypical cooling towers that you see at every power plant, but each one is a little bit different depending on the type of reactor construction that you've got. I'm guessing that some of this is built to be more hurricane proof. As much as you can make it. So there we go. This is the St. Lucie nuclear power plant. So actually, let's kind of see what the effects were as these storms came across here. And this is probably a story that most people are not talking about. So thank you for bringing that up, Commander. So this will take us back here at 11:30, and we can see how a lot of these storms came through here. So this is our nuclear power plant right there. And we can see that a lot of these strong cells did come through this area. earlier in the day. So I'm not sure how this would have affected things. Obviously, I would assume that a nuclear reactor in Florida would have been built to stay in Category 5 storms, but tornadoes are kind of a different beast altogether. Now, a strong Category 5 is going to give you winds that are close to an EF4. So that's the enhanced Fujikawa scale. Hurricanes are measured on what's called the Saffir-Simpson scale. Tornadoes are on the Fujikawa scale. Or is it let me look it up, what it's called. Or am I confusing this with Halo? So EF tornado scale. The Fujita scale, so it's not the Fujikawa. I'm thinking of Fujikawa, the Shaw Fujikawa drives from Halo, which is their hyperdrives. So it's the Fujita scale, the enhanced Fujita scale. So that would be the equivalent of, a strong F4 tornado is what a Category 5 would be, a mid to strong F4 tornado. So if you have something like an F5 tornado, which is an extremely small percentage of tornadoes, that would cause some serious damage, much more than a Category 5 hurricane. So I'm not sure. That is something to keep an eye out on and maybe be a little bit concerned about if there's any issues. Now, I'm sure that they would have shut down the reactor before something like this. I'd like to think so, and go on backup, electricity. So conventional oil or coal fuel. So it's just something to keep in mind, right? It is a little bit offshore. But look at that. We can get right here and zoom in on it with this software. And you can just see it right there as those radar bands go across. Now, if we switch to the high-res velocity map, this will kind of show us what we saw earlier as far as some of the wind, and we can see if there were any kind of tornadoes that may have passed through that area over time. So tornadoes will show up like this over here. You can see kind of these red spots that are going through with a lot of lightning bolts around them. Those were supposed tornadoes earlier during the day. So we know that the Vero Beach area just up north of St. Lucie did take some tornadoes earlier. And it seems like they got pretty close. So this could be a story that nobody's talking about very much. And hopefully not something that we need to worry about. But I did get reports earlier that the St. Lucie Police Department did take a hit from a tornado and it was heavily damaged. So who knows if that's something that we'll find out about later on. So I'm not trying to be sensational here or anything like that, but hopefully they went with backups and they were able to keep that reactor, kind of on that backup power rather than, having it running at the time. So let's switch back to the regular radar here and we can watch again the progress of the storm from earlier in the day. I think we'll be getting the 7 p.m. advisory coming through anytime now. And I appreciate everyone watching this episode of Rolo's Rants, the Hurricane Milton edition. I just wanted to provide a little bit of reference here as somebody that's lived in Florida for, since 1999 at this point, or 96 really, and South Florida since 1999. And so I've been through a few storms. I'm also from Puerto Rico. I went through storms when I was a baby. I don't remember them. Hurricane Hugo passed by pretty much where I lived. My parents experienced that. That was a Category 5 storm that occurred in 1989. And it was the worst storm that had struck Puerto Rico at the time. Puerto Rico also got skirted by Irma, which Irma passed by through the Florida Keys. And it seems like I've seen the aftermath of all of these storms. I got to see what happened about 2 or 3 weeks after Irma going down to the Florida Keys. So Hurricane Irma, the eye of the storm, passed right here through Cudjoe Key before the 7 Mile Bridge. So the famous 7 Mile Bridge is over here between Marathon and I believe, what's this one? Loggerhead or Sandspur Beach on Bahia Honda Key. If you watched True Lies, that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger a few years ago, This is where the terrorists, kind of set off that nuclear bomb in the Keys on one of the uninhabited islands. And you had the famous scene with the Harriers in the truck going over the 7 Mile Bridge. But Irma passed through Cudjoe Key, which is right here in the middle, and just pretty much sliced through it. And it looked like a nuclear bomb had gone off. It really did. It was crazy to see that as far, northeast here in Key Biscayne. This is where you enter the Keys on US 1. By the time I was in Key Largo driving down there, I was going to deal with a client that I had in the area. You could already see boats on the road. You could see where the high water mark from the storm surge came across. You could see how so much sand had been pulled on the road, near the roadways. I mean, look, this is nothing right here, how thin a lot of the Florida Keys are. You're talking about like these are houses right here that are, just 10 houses deep or less. That's the width of some of these islands. So you can see how the storm surge would have gotten pulled up. Some of these islands are just the width of the road, which is 2 lanes. So it's completely crazy what went on here. And almost all of this was underwater during Irma. Key West was pretty lucky being so far out. But the amount of damage that was caused here was catastrophic. And if your house was not built on stilts with pylons going down like 25 feet, it was pretty much totaled. That was it. It either got pulled away, destroyed, or it was an insurance loss. And insurance prices here in Florida have gone up exponentially. I know that my car insurance is over the last few years has probably gone up more, doubled almost. Well, it's not exponentially, but it's gone up significantly. And that's going to be obviously loss of life and property are the first priority here. But this storm will probably make Florida almost unaffordable for a lot of people to live in. And it's not necessarily going to be just because of property costs, which Florida was one of the highest rising markets for real estate over these last few years. It is just going to be the insurance costs. I wouldn't be surprised if, my monthly insurance is close to a car payment for a lot of people at this point. It's almost 3/5 of what my truck payment is. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's almost close to what I pay for my truck is. So you're talking about paying almost the equivalent of what you would pay for a brand new vehicle. In car insurance costs alone, property insurance is going to be even higher. Renter's insurance is typically pretty affordable in comparison, but you could see all of that go off because of the storm surge damage that you're going to see. You're going to see thousands of cars and homes that are going to be insurance losses throughout the Tampa Bay and Sarasota area. We've already seen a ton of them from Cedar Key and this entire Spring Hill going to Clearwater and St. Pete Beach. Thousands of homes that have been insurance losses now already. This is only going to increase, and this is kind of one of the untold stories of these storms. It's not just about the loss of life and the suffering. It is about the aftermath and some people never being able to recover again and having to leave what is a state that I personally love. I love Florida. I love the people here. I love the parks, obviously. You guys know how much I love riding roller coasters all the time and doing videos in the past for different YouTube channels. And I'm heartbroken at what I've seen today with all of these tornadoes and what we'll probably see tonight, because these are all cities that I've hung out at for years for different events, going to different theme parks. We had Halloween, all the Halloween events are going on in Central Florida right now. Who knows when these parks will be able to open up again. Busch Gardens is probably the one to be concerned about the most because it's, right there within the cone of the storm. It's going to be, let's stop our radar right here and check it out. We're going to see here Busch Boulevard. So Busch Gardens is around this area right here, near 275. And I don't know what kind of damage we're going to have there. It's a It's also a zoo. It's here near the University of South Florida, which is actually a university that I almost went to back in the day when I was a young buck. I'm not as young as I used to be. I know I probably look pretty good for my age, but I'm almost I'm just a few years shy of 40 years old. But all of these areas are going to be very affected. There will be a lot of flooding. Like I said, I used to live really more in this kind of area, in this general area of West Orlando, somewhat recently. There are a lot of people that I'm sure that many of you know that are in this area right now. We have a lot of, there are a lot of theme park channels, things like that. A lot of people, media personalities. We have, obviously, Benny Johnson. I believe Viva Frey is in here. The redheaded libertarian is in Sarasota. Benny Johnson is in the Tampa Bay area. So a lot of big time media personalities. Luke Rudkowski is in South Florida. And I think Southwest Florida. A lot of it's still young. Yeah, I don't believe me, I don't feel old at all. If anything, I'm in the best shape and health that I've been in my entire life, which is fantastic, outside of when I used to be on a swim team back in the day. So, that's good to hear. It's kind of subsided where Tom is. He's in Central Florida. Again, I'm not going to dox Tom, but I know exactly where he lives. So it's good to hear that he's got a bit of a lull right now. And I think that's what we're going to see now as these bands go offshore. You can see that the main cap of the storm is really concentrated off the coast right now. That's where we're seeing a lot of these lightning storms and cells picking up. So we'll see a lot of that coming back on shore near Daytona Beach. And so I'm not sure what kind of damage. Yep, I saw that Benny was there. Oh, well, there you go. I did not know that Hannity from Fox News also moved down there. So it's pretty crazy. So it looks like I'm getting this straight from the mod extraordinaire. She told me, she gave me an update earlier that they think that a lot of the worst of the tornadoes are gone. Oh, okay, wow. Experiment 626 is near the Orlando airport. So we can check out that radar right now if you want to see it. It looks like a lot of those storms have moved off. Earlier today, it was getting pretty wild out there in this Triple N Ranch Wildlife Management area, which is a wonderful park. Great place to go hunting if you're into that. Lots of beautiful turkeys. I don't know if the turkeys are okay right now, if they got pulled up into the storm. There were some pretty serious tornadoes that we saw earlier in that area. I believe we've got some video of that here. This was in Wellington, Florida, earlier today. That's a pretty significant tornado. We were seeing tornadoes, the likes of which that you would have thought were like something that you'd see in the Great Plains, like Kansas, Nebraska, all of that stuff. It was completely wild and terrifying. And I'd never seen anything like that in Florida. This is who everyone's calling Lieutenant Dan. He's down in Tampa Bay. He's missing a leg. He's basically lives just on this boat. And, they took away his Social Security payment. So a lot of people have been trying to look out for him. And he's right there in Tampa Bay. So God bless this man. I hope he's okay. This was just a few hours ago, actually, where they went and checked in on him. And he's in this little boat, maybe like 20 feet in length. And he went through Helene. He said that the storm surge pretty much brought him up within an inch of the dock. The storm surge is supposed to be nearly double that, potentially here. So we will see how bad that is. We've been seeing just a lot of tornadoes popping up throughout the day here. And it's just wild. It's absolutely wild what's been going on here as the day's gone on. So, yeah, he wrote out Helene. God bless him. We can see that Governor DeSantis is stressed out. This was a video from him earlier. He's done a fantastic job throughout this storm, but I think seeing all of the tornadoes that dropped down and in parts that really a lot of people didn't expect, we're bracing to see what kind of damage was caused from those tornadoes. At this point, we should have the 7 p.m. advisory, so let's go ahead and check that out. I'm sure that Milton is going to be making landfall at any moment. So let's go back here to the main page here. And it looks like it's still holding at 120 miles per hour, which is that's a category 3, I believe. Let's go ahead and check out the Saffir-Simpson scale here and see what we're looking at here. And you can hear I've got the weather radio, and I'm gonna there are a few things that I do want to show here. I think it's things that you should all own if you're in a hurricane area. So a major hurricane, we'll go through this for people that don't know. A major hurricane is any hurricane that is category 3 and above. So that's going to be 111 to 129 miles per hour. And a Cat 4 is 130 to 156. And a category 5 is 157 and above. When this storm was at its peak over the Gulf of Mexico, it had been 185 miles per hour. They were seeing gusts that were, almost 200 miles per hour at some point. So, which is crazy. It was I believe the 6th lowest pressure that we had ever seen in the Atlantic Basin. Hurricane Wilma, I think, was number 1 in this region at like 888, I think, millibars. This one was at 896, I believe, at its peak. So it was a record-breaking storm in its own right already. You can see that they've got a kind of a demonstration of the wind damage here and how that'll look. It's pretty rudimentary, but it kind of gets the point across of what you might see. So category 2 is going to rip shingles off of normal houses. When you're getting to category 3, it can start ripping the roofs off of, conventional wooden homes. And then obviously 4 and 5, you're talking about like F3, F4 tornado level. And all the trees are going to get knocked down if the ground is saturated. So it can be pretty catastrophic. Right now, at landfall, we're going to have a mid-category 3, which is still pretty major. The storm surge is going to be pretty severe. And as it goes across the state, it'll quickly... Still scheduled to be a category 1, I believe, on the other side of the state. So let's double check this right now. It looks like it hasn't quite made landfall yet. We'll check the cone. So it looks like on the other side, it will be a tropical storm. It's still forecast to be a hurricane across central Florida. We'll see when it finally weakens. But it's still going to be something pretty scary for a lot of those areas. Not something that, Central Florida really has experienced in a long time. So, yeah, we're forecast to be a 1 right here so far with winds of around 90 miles per hour and gusts of 115. So, not a joke at all. If you're in Central Florida, flooding, yes, flooding is going to be a major concern. If we take off the radar, let's see if we can do that. As we go here, display settings. Let's go to satellite view. All right, we'll go to satellite view and we'll take off the radar so I can kind of show you guys how the state is. So, full coverage radar. We got the storm tracks. And here we go, data overlay. I think we can remove the radar. Oh no, that shows me where the radars are located. Still new with this software, guys. This is a very powerful piece of software. It's called Radar Omega. Anybody can download it. Very inexpensive. You can download it on your phone. In fact, you create the account on your phone. It's in the Apple App Store, in the Android Store. You can actually see the storm chasers that use this software. All these little faces and icons are storm chasers in the area. I'm not going to click on their icons because a lot of you can see some of their live feeds as they drive around. Okay, 10 to 20 inches of rainfall in Orlando. That is a massive amount. That may not seem like a lot, but that is absolutely huge. So you'll see potentials for flash floods. There are a ton of flash flood warnings all around that area, going from Tampa to Central Florida. So pretty much all along the I-4 corridor. And you can see the rainfall potential here throughout this storm. And so you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of flooding. You're going to see flash flood potential You'll see wind damage in a lot of these areas. A lot of the newer homes in Central Florida, like the one that I used to live in, that was new construction. It was built right, in 2022, I believe. Those houses are concrete block. They're very similar to what we have in South Florida. Like I said, some of the regions on the western side of Central Florida, so west of Orlando, it's the highest areas. It's the highest areas of Florida. So around Lakeland, kind of going down, there's a spine of hills. I call it the Florida Mountain Range. Not really taller than like 250, maybe almost 300 feet are there. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know about is that a lot of phosphorus is actually mined in this region between Lakeland and Tampa Bay. And phosphorus is used for fertilizer. So this could have an effect on agriculture. Obviously, it will, because there's also a lot of farmland and agricultural land, oranges, in the Central Florida area. So you'll probably have a lot of damage to crops and things like that with water saturation, with wind damage. And you may see delays in those phosphorus shipments. I hopefully you won't see damage to the railroads that run through this area. But these are all things that can affect the U.S. economy as a whole. So if some of you may have learned over, some of the coverage with Hurricane Helene, that the regions of North Carolina that were affected are the homes of some of the largest quartz mines in the entire world. And quartz is used in almost every electronic device that you can think of. So a lot of times we think of silicone and lithium, silicone for computer chips, lithium for batteries, but, quartz crystal is used for a lot of electronic devices. So the entire world is wondering, I think 90% of most of the quartz in the United States was mined in that region, and railroad tracks were pulled out of the ground near that Asheville, North Carolina region. And so those mines are going to be, who knows how long they'll be out of commission. And, the damage to how many of those workers are displaced now that won't be able to live in that area. How many of them may have passed away. We still don't know the extent of the damage from Hurricane Helene. And as we've seen, this administration has done a treacherous job, which I personally think is intentional in these regions for political purposes. We haven't seen the coverage that we should have seen. Thank goodness for Elon Musk and for Donald Trump, but especially Elon Musk for spreading Starlink, for running X, that we can see the efforts that are going on the ground. Thank God for the men and women in Appalachia and the veterans that we're seeing there who are saving themselves, who are organizing things. We've got relief organizations like Samaritan's Purse, which is, if you're going to give money to anybody, I would say that Samaritan's Purse is probably one of the best that you can think of. They're getting resources directly to the people there. If there's anybody else that that you want to give to directly there, I encourage it. The people there need it. They're basically doing things on their own without the federal government. And I think that we may see something similar here in Florida, because A, FEMA ain't got any money left. B, we got Ron DeSantis, so he's going to do as much as he can for the people of Florida. And C, we've already seen what's happened elsewhere. So Floridians need to come together after this storm to really help each other. Whatever I can do, I'm a licensed drone pilot. I recently renewed my license. I've got many drones, which are a wonderful tool in these times, especially for search and rescue, damage surveying, and all of that. If I'm needed, sometimes they use private drone pilots for damage assessments and search and rescue. And I know that after, I believe Irma, they called a lot of, private drone pilots to help with this stuff. I will definitely try to volunteer in that capacity if possible, because we're going to be totally fine here in Miami-Dade County. But, we need to be prepared for this stuff. If there's anything, we can do, I've got a truck. So any supplies or anything like that, we as Americans need to step up, and we need to help each other, because as is one of the monikers or one of the phrases that we always use, or mottos of the Second Amendment community is, yes, CD Josh, I am in a safe area. I know I just kind of said that to answer your question, we're in the southeast portion of Florida, which really was unscathed throughout all this. Like I said, it has barely rained all day. It's been very bizarre just seeing just the bands coming ashore, flying across our home, and just not being affected by it whatsoever. So it's pretty crazy. We've been very lucky here. Even the rain stopped. It was raining here for days. Barely a drop of rain today. And it's been sunny. I had one of my solar panels out and was charging a backup battery. Charged it up, no problem. I didn't need to bring it in until this evening. And at this point, I'm kind of looking out the window over here, and there's really nothing going on. It's wild what we're seeing here, or what we're not seeing, really, if we're being honest. So I guess we're going to make landfall probably here in the next hour or so, I would guess. You can see that the eye wall is coming ashore right here near Sarasota. Let's go to Twitter and see if anybody is broadcasting anything that we can check out on as far as that is concerned. As it comes, Lieutenant Dan, he's hanging out, man. He is hanging out. Look at this guy. He's doing all right.
To the dock, police came, told me I'm not allowed to be here, so I got to move out by Monday. The big boat, Jose Gasparillo, is coming back on Monday, so I got to be out of here by then. That's not a big deal. We'll take care of all that. But I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to everybody that donated and your well wishes and everything. It really meant a lot, and I want to thank each and every single one of you. If I knew all your I'm going to go through the list, and I'm going to try to send thank yous to everybody, but you know what?
He's just become a Florida hero. This guy's Florida man.
But I love you,
quintessential.
and it really meant a lot to me. Thank you.
GoFundMe is at almost $6,000. Jay will be getting a check in his name, so all the money will be going to him. We just want to say thank you to everyone. He's been...
So this was yesterday. Hopefully he'll be okay going through the storm. And we'll just go through the feed here. We can see several tornadoes did heavy damage on the Treasure Coast. Looks like no injuries reported. You can see some of the tornadoes here. They were absolutely massive going across the coast. It is incredible what we were seeing here earlier today. It was terrifying. Tornadoes are definitely really the scariest thing that you're going to experience in any of these storms, because you're always expecting the wind from the storm itself. You're always expecting the rain. But a lot of times people forget about the tornadoes, and tornadoes are really something that will, as far as physical wind damage, that will, really devastate almost any home, whether it's, a mobile home up to a concrete home. Very few things can survive a tornado. So we can go through the feed here. Yeah, the tornadoes bans have been dissipated. So the Redheaded Libertarian, she's a great follow on Twitter. She's in Sarasota, so good to see that she's okay. Reed Timmer, a fantastic follow. He's here. This is the eye wall right here. So this is here in Sarasota.
Let's go! Get out of here!
So this is what's going on there as the eye comes on shore. He's crazy.
Everybody get indoors! That's what I'm talking. Whoa! Whoa!
That's a Category 3 coming on shore, ladies and gentlemen. Probably 120 miles per hour right there. So let's see.
Here comes the surge coming right offshore, folks. These waves keep stacking up.
So let's watch Reed here.
Offshore, we're about to have onshore flowing, big time waves coming in here. Restore surge like threatening. Power flashes out to the north. Yes. You hear it? I sure can. Wow.
This is wild stuff here. Shout out to Rumble. We got 10 people watching there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on this kind of impromptu stream here. I'll probably go for about another half an hour as the storm comes ashore. We'll finish a regular 2-hour stream. We will be back for our gaming streams this week. yes, if you're just joining us, I'm okay. I'm in Miami-Dade County. You can see power transformers blowing right there from wind damage. This is in Venice, Florida. I've been here. I actually flew a plane back in the day here. The first time I ever flew a plane was out of the Venice airport. Had a great time doing that. But it's crazy to see this. I spent like a week in Venice on a project many years ago. Almost 15 years ago at this point. And so I know the area pretty well. And the airport is actually probably right around that area. It's just a small municipal airport, no control tower or anything. So you just kind of squawk on the radio and let people know, hey, I'm going to take off, I'm going to land. And that's pretty much it. It was a Beechcraft Bonanza that I flew, that a friend had and knew I always wanted to be a pilot. Brought it over with a flight instructor, and we had a good time flying around. It was pretty sweet. But I know this area fairly well. And it is crazy to see just the regions that are being affected by this. Now, that surge, I mean, it looks like pretty heavy waves, but honestly, so far it looks like, we're really not going to know the extent of all of this for a while. Here's Mario Nafal. The eye is moving shore, so we do have landfall officially of Hurricane Milton as a Category 3 storm right now. It'll be crossing the state throughout the night. We'll see different effects. Flooding is probably going to be the biggest thing that we see for Central Florida. A lot of the homes there are not necessarily up to the modern hurricane code. A lot of them have been built, in the last 30, 40 years. There are a lot of mobile homes in the area and a lot of smaller towns. Lakeland is unfortunately one of the poorest cities in Florida. So hopefully a lot of those people got out or they have shelters because there are just a lot of small wooden homes. Some of them are like those steel homes as well. In that area, I've driven through there many times. There's a great shooting range out there that's run by the state of Florida. It's beautiful. I know the region well. There's a lot of cool little tourist traps. There's a World War II plane museum there. There's a cool little dinosaur park out there. Obviously, we have the line of theme parks that we all know and love running from Tampa, which has Busch Gardens Africa. We've got Disney World, obviously, which I know people don't like Disney that much anymore, but it is kind of a jewel of America, or at least it has been in the past. And so I would hate to see Disney damaged. Right now, Universal Studios is obviously there. We've got Universal's new park, Epic Universe, which is currently under construction. So I'm concerned about that, whether this storm will cause damage to delay the opening of that park. That's something to be seen. You can watch a lot of construction updates for that. Look at that. We've just got a gap here over the airport where you can actually see the runway and some of those gaps. So hopefully everyone that's still in Orlando, you guys were spared. I know Experiment 626, you said you were there. There are a lot of other people that I'm sure that you guys watch that are in the Orlando area. Here's Universal Orlando Resort. Tom is in Central Florida. You see him at the parks all the time. So hopefully he'll be able to go back on those streams. It won't be too affected. The new Universal Park right here, Epic Universe, you can see is just a couple of miles, not even down the street from the main Universal Resort, which is over here. I mean, you can see like the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, all that stuff. This is City Walk. And there's Islands of Adventure in Universal Studios. SeaWorld is a little bit further down the street. We've got Lockheed Martin, the military industrial complex right there as well. This is where they build the JASSM cruise missiles, actually, that we've been giving quite a few of them to Ukraine. So if we've got a bone to pick with somebody, these are the guys that you can go ahead and talk to, because that's where a lot of the money that should be going to FEMA is going to and being given to Ukraine to buy Lockheed Martin's missiles. So yeah, I'm going to get political here because it would not be a Rolo's Rant stream without a rant about the deep state, the military industrial complex, and the debacle that the Democrat Party has pushed here, and especially the embarrassment that the Kamala Harris Biden administration has become. Now, it seems like in moments of lucidity, President Biden has been throwing Commie Kamala under the bus, which is fantastic to see because she was the anointed one. The media's been covering for her. So it's fantastic to see that it seems like in flashes of mental lucidity that Joe Biden is starting to throw his own party under the bus. So you love to see it. He's getting revenge. So I really want to give credit to Elon Musk for the work that he's done to make sure that we can get information out there with Starlink, with Twitter. If it wasn't for him, we really would not know what is going on in other parts of the country right now that have been affected by these storms. And Starlink is going to be a godsend for a lot of the communities that are being affected by this storm right now. So thank God for Elon Musk. Thank God that we've got a president in the future, and hopefully Donald Trump, who will make a difference here, who will make sure that government spending is coming back to the United States and not going overseas to fund foreign wars and foreign aid, the UN and their criminality, because let's be honest, they're contributing to a lot of what's going on in the Middle East as well, with funding terrorist organizations that Israel then has to go deal with. And then that's more money that we have to spend. And it seems like we're giving money to both sides of every conflict every time, whether it's backing out of the Iranian deal or paying for peers in Gaza that then get destroyed. It's pretty ridiculous. So that's a lot of what we're seeing. So that's my little political rant here for those of you that may have come here for just a weather stream. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to drop a super chat or anything like that, that's fantastic. I would encourage you to give to, to Samaritan's Purse or other organizations that you know that are actually giving supplies to people on the ground, not giving it to FEMA to then give to illegals or to hoard for themselves to take credit for what the American people are doing themselves on the ground. Helene is a national tragedy on the scale of which we've never seen before. Hopefully Milton is not the same, but we won't find out until tomorrow morning really what the beginning of the legacy of this storm is and who was affected. I would expect there to be a lot of power outages for at least a couple of days for many people here. Hopefully you have a generator. And I would encourage everybody, just as some advice, if you don't have this already, if you're Floridians, you probably do, but you really need to invest in, good survival tools. I've always been an advocate of being a bit of a prepper, as many of you have known over the years. You obviously know that I am a massive firearms aficionado. I own a ton of guns. You see one of them right here, the Mark 18 behind me. You've seen many more of them in different videos and different streams throughout the years. But, guns aren't great if you can't survive. You need to be able to eat and you need to be able to drink. So having water purification systems, like something like a Life Straw at a minimum, something like even better, a gravity filter, which you can fill up with dirty water. And then it'll use gravity to filter through, filter your water into another bag. I've got what's called a platypus system. So actually, let's kind of look at a hurricane list here of some of the supplies that I think everybody should own in order to get prepared for a hurricane and for a survival situation. So I've got some of them around me, which I'm willing to show you all. And some that I don't, that I can still show you here on Amazon or any other website here. So the platypus system I think is great just because of its capacity. There we go, platypus water filter. So it's just basically a bladder. Some of these can be pretty pricey, but if You won't regret. You really won't regret buying something like this and having it just in case of a disastrous situation, especially if you live in a place that is prone to disasters. If you're going out camping, this is great. So you've got one bag for the dirty water. You literally just hang it from a tree or from anything else, and it will go through the filter and into the clean water bag. You can then distribute that in different water bottles, containers, cups, whatever you want. And then you don't have to boil water. If you get a carbon filter, I should get affiliate links for Amazon. Yeah, I know. I'm a terrible YouTuber, Tom. I always have been. I appreciate you. So you should get some of this stuff. I think it's fantastic. I'm not even going to show my Amazon order list because it's pretty crazy right now, some of the things that I bought. But I think having a weather radio, a NOAA radio like this one, which is multifunction. It can be a flashlight. Check that out. You got a flashlight right here. It's AM, FM. It could be even an emergency signal. It can be powered by, it's got a solar cell on top. It can be hand cranked. It's got a rechargeable battery, so you can crank it up if you need to. It's also powered by USB, which is the way that I have it plugged in right now, just so that it works. And again, AM, FM, it's got all the NOAA radio. This one is waterproof, so it'll float. This one is made by Midland, so I highly recommend this one. This particular model is fairly inexpensive. Actually, let's look it up. Midland NOAA radio. If I can type correctly, there you go. NOAA emergency weather radio. So yeah, this one's $50. I've seen it even cheaper in certain times. There are other different models that you can get. It looks like this one right here, the ER40 is probably the newer model. So you can check any of these out. If crank it during storms. There you go, Tom. That's what he said. You can also get walkie-talkies. Walkie-talkies are extremely important. I also recommend getting a ham radio and getting your license for longer range. You can get something like a Baofeng radio. I'll show you all of this stuff too. This particular set of walkie-talkies, the reason why I wanted this one is because it also has the weather radio capability in it. So we can kind of switch that. And you can go through all the different emergencies and all that. And it'll also let you Bluetooth. This one's also a flashlight as well, which is useful. This is powered by either double A's or the rechargeable NIM battery on the back. You can put it on a dock. It's USB-C. It's Bluetooth compatible. And what this one does, this is a Motorola T802. It's not completely submerged waterproof. There are other radios that are. So depending on where you are, if you're in a flood-prone region, if you want to take it like whitewater rafting or something like that, you can get one of the waterproof ones. But this one will sync to your phone with an app through Bluetooth and allow you to, if somebody else has one of these radios, send text messages between one another and download offline maps. So this is the Motorola T802. You can get the T801. The only difference is the T801 is lime green and this one's blue. So that's pretty much it. These run anywhere between, right now this week, they were about less than $110 for a set of two. Normally, I think they run for about $130 here on Amazon. I think you can buy them at Best Buy for a similar price. I would recommend also a ham radio, the UV5R by Baofeng. Unfortunately, it is Chinese. Right now, you can get like two of them with extended batteries and all this stuff for $48. Now, if you're just listening to radio signals, you do not have to have a ham radio license. If you're just acting as a receiver, if you want to broadcast, then you need your ham radio license. It's not difficult. Recommend everyone get that too. And it's a lot of fun. Let's be honest. Listening to different police scanners and all that stuff, truckers, it's cool. A lot of police departments nowadays use digital radio, so you're not going to be able to pick up on them. If you want, if you're into tactical stuff and you've got a team of dudes that maybe you guys are doing, your community watch and things like that, a lot of people maybe in these in regions after a disaster. You can get your ham radios, and you can use these. They've got extended antennas and all that stuff, so the range is pretty far on some of these Baofangs. And you've got your little walkie-talkie too. You can strap this right on your plate carrier, body armor, chest rig, if you've got one. Which I actually have a pretty cool chest rig right here, hanging behind my seat, which I can show you guys here in a second if I can take it apart. Again, on that stuff that I was expecting to pull out, but yeah, the UV5R. So this is a chest rig. This isn't a bulletproof vest, but you wear this on your chest, or you can wear it on top of body armor, I guess, if you want. You can have your magazine right there. This is an AR-15 magazine. These walkie-talkies will also fit perfectly. This is the Victos, chest rig. Fantastic. Less than $100. Really great. Quick and easy snap on. You can even, it's got some mall webbing on the back plate, so you can put a Camelback or something like that. That's usually how I'll carry it. So you can have your couple of rifle magazines. You can have 3 pistol magazines on this. I usually carry a tourniquet right here in this pouch or underneath, strapped up. So right now I was going out kayaking, so I took one of my tourniquets off of this. I got another one in there. And you can have your radio right there. I also have a plate carrier that you can use very similarly. So if you ever need to run in a disaster situation, which in a lot of states do have open carry. Some states during a state of emergency, open carry is allowed. Obviously, check your local listings and laws for that before you get in trouble with the local law enforcement. Plus, a lot of police officers, even if that's the case, most of them don't know gun laws, so they may try to arrest you if you're packing heat during a disaster. So just be careful. Your mileage may vary. I'm not a legal expert. So those are all good things to have. Again, you should have portable battery packs and something maybe like this, a little bit larger. This is a Westinghouse iGen 200S. I like this. I originally bought this to be able to, plug things in. Let's bring the camera a little bit bigger here. To be able to plug things into my vehicle, you can power it I've got a solar panel over here, which I'll show, which can power this. You can obviously plug it in. It's also got what we would have called back in the day the cigarette lighter power adapter for a car. It's just your normal power adapter, the circular one that you have in most vehicles. And again, this has got a flashlight with different settings. It's got 2 120 volt outlets. It's got USB quick charging, either USB-C or conventional USB. And something like this has about a 300 watt peak output. So I can actually plug in an Xbox Series S and a portable monitor and play video games on it if you wanted to. I've done that on many road trips where I've had somebody else drive and I'm just, hanging out playing Xbox on the side. But during a disaster, this is great for charging phones and different electronics. You can get some that are thousands of milliamp hours that can power your home like a regular gas generator. So this is just a small one, a basic one, but this will let me pretty much keep my cell phone going for a very long time. And so this one is a Westinghouse iGen 200S. This is about $130, $140. They go up in price as capacity increases. There are even some that once you get into the thousands of milliamp hours or watt hours, I should say, that can power refrigerators, and they'll have a 220 volt 3-prong outlet coming out of them. So if you want to be able to charge something like this, you're going to need a solar panel of decent capacity like this. This is a solar panel right here. This is a 100 watt solar panel. You can get this for about $130 as well on Amazon. I got this actually just in time for this storm. So it'll unfold. It's got 4 segments right here. So too big to show on camera. And so this is rated at 100 watts. Obviously, your mileage is going to vary based on how much sun you've got, where you are in the country. So being in South Florida, we get pretty much as much sunlight as you can get in the United States. So solar panels are pretty useful here. If you're up in Michigan or something like that, outside of the summer, it may not be, it's not going to be as efficient, but still something cool to have. It's got a pouch in the back with different adapters. It can power things through USB or a lot of these industry standard connectors that you can see there. It's got the little hub. You plug your DC power, and this particular one will power the Westinghouse battery that you saw. I was able to charge it today. No big deal. For a small battery like that Westinghouse, this can probably charge it in a couple of hours, which is pretty impressive at peak sunlight. So these are just some of the things that you can that you should have on hand. You know, water purification systems, radios, dehydrated food, camping stoves, and things like that. I highly recommend. So something like a fire maple camping stove is indispensable in times like this. If you want to go American, you can buy something like what is called a jet boil. If you're okay with not buying American and saving, you know, basically more than $100, you can buy something like this, which is powered with these butane canisters. So you got a little stove on the bottom. You hook up one of these little butane right there. I've used it to make scrambled eggs, bacon. It's fantastic. It'll boil water, and you can make coffee with a different coffee filter and all this stuff. So you'll see some of these things. I'll show a lot of these things on camera in the future as I start going camping, which I have plans on doing. So you can check out my other channel, Roaming with Rolo, for a lot of those adventures. I've been kind of working my way up to this. But when you live in a disaster area like Florida, having good camping gear is fantastic. Obviously, having tents wouldn't hurt. You could see that some houses lost their roofs. Where are you going to stay with that? How long is it going to take you to recover? Even if you have insurance, you may be out of a home for months, or weeks or days, you know, at least if you don't have power. So you may need to stay outside, get good sleeping bags, get good camping gear. It's important to have that. Cookware, gas, you know, propane, butane, and some of the Coleman regular, gas tanks that you can have. You're going to need lighter fire starting kits, water purification tablets, water filters. Water is going to be the most important thing that you have. So if you need to start somewhere, invest in a means of you being able to purify your water. So percolator coffee pot, absolutely. You guys have seen me use mine many times on the YouTube channel. If you want to see what one looks like, we can go straight to the other. We'll go straight to the other channel, and you guys can check that out. And I'll show you what a percolator looks like. If you don't know, it's just your little stovetop coffee maker. So it's pretty old school, and it's something great. So let's go to Roaming with Rolo here, and I'll show you guys that a little bit. This is all on topic. So if we bring this here, you can see this is a percolator. That's it. Pretty simple. You just put it on your stove. You heat up, you put the coffee in it. This is my own video here of me using it. So you just put coffee in it, put it on your stove, boil it, and then, pour it in. It's good to go. It's better than a Keurig. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes on a stovetop. Fantastic stuff. So go ahead and get a percolator. You won't regret it. Easy way to make coffee. If you want to go really simple, you can even get just a pour over coffee maker. So you'd use something like that fire maple stove, boil some water, literally have a little sack that you put coffee grounds in it, and you pour the water through that, and you've got your cup underneath. That filters the coffee through it. That's as simple as it gets. And you don't need this. This particular coffee cup, I'm not one of these basic Stanley people with that name brand, but this is actually a French press inside. So if I were to pull this out, you'd have a filter in it. You can put coffee, ground coffee in it, boil the water, push it through, and it does the same thing. It filters the coffee. This is an all-in-one solution too, as a basic coffee maker. I'm sure there are other companies that make it if you don't want to buy Stanley. It was a pretty good price. So absolutely worth it, in my opinion, too, if you want to make coffee on the go. So these are all items that I think that you should have for a hurricane or for camping or anything like that. It's great stuff. And a lot of them aren't really that expensive. And you won't regret it if you're in a situation where you need to survive, or you've gone through a disaster and you want a few creature comforts to give you that semblance of normalcy. Because a lot of times when you go through this, you've been through a lot of fear, because there's a lot of stress involved with waiting for a storm like this to come ashore, for going through all these tornado warnings and watches, seeing other people suffer. Maybe you were watching a lot of the Helene coverage and you live in Florida and you were terrified. A lot of people have moved down to Florida since the COVID-19 pandemic because of the freedom that we have here. And now they're in this state that it's wonderful that they love, and they've got crazy storms flying around. They're like, oh my God, did I make a mistake moving here? That's for you to answer, but you should be prepared, because there is a cost to freedom, unfortunately. And being in a state where it's going to be like 80 degrees in the winter and you can go to the beach 365 days a year. And it is that we deal with these storms and the consequences of these storms, which is unfortunately astronomical insurance costs. And that's something that we're going to see in the aftermath of this storm. So, you always want to pay attention and, go on boat on the side of caution. I know millions of people left for this storm. A lot of people may feel ridiculous that they're upset that it wasn't a Category 5 when it came on shore. So why did they evacuate? No, it's better to be safe than sorry, especially when you live in these coastal regions, because even though you can build a wind-proof home in many cases, especially if you buy something that's on stilts and it's round, you can survive winds up to 190 miles per hour, even with a wooden house. That way, there is a builder. They totally slipped past my mind. I don't know if the mod extraordinaire is around and can remind me of what that builder was. But even if you build a home that is resistant, look at this, Greg the Goblin, dropping the 20. We got $20. Hey, Rolo, and and coffee is gross. That is okay. Pick your poison. Maybe you don't need caffeine at all. That's pretty good. But I can say that coffee is kind of like beer, isn't it? Where if you drink both of them, or if you don't, even better. If you don't need any sort of stimulant, depressant, or any other type of drug, cigars or cigarettes or anything like that, God bless you. More power to you. President Trump doesn't need any of it, and neither should you. He's a badass, but I drink my coffee. I smoke cigars every once in a while. It's just the way that it is. I live in South Florida. I'm Puerto Rican. What can I tell you? I may indulge in rum every once in a while because, again, Bacardi is in Puerto Rico. So everything in moderation, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Thanks, Carla. Yeah, I know. I totally forgot. Maybe there's somebody else in the chat that knows. They make these round houses. It's fantastic. You can buy the kit, and you put them on stilts, and they'll survive pretty much everything. Tea is even better for you. Tea Earl Grey hot. If you want to be like Captain Picard, I'm more a little bit of a Janeway when it comes to my caffeine indulgence, and like Voyager, there's coffee in that nebula, and I'm gonna go for it every time. If you know, you know. Cuban coffee's fantastic too. How's it going, CNT Design and Arms? Good to see you. They are here. We're just here while Hurricane Milton comes ashore. Let's see if we've got any more. This is how the radar looked throughout the day. Again, those of you that may have joined us a little bit later, this is the Radar Omega software. If you live in Florida, if you know a little bit, if you're savvy with software, if you want to know what is going on at any time, this software is incredible. It'll show you more than you ever wanted to know about the weather, especially tropical systems like this. You can click on different radars and you can zoom in, see what's going on all over the place. You can watch hurricane hunters. All these little dots here are some of the hurricane hunters that are going throughout. I'll click on one in a second. They've got their content. I don't want to take it from them, but you can see their live cams as they drive around and some of the traffic cams and things like that throughout the region. It looks like in the southern regions of Florida where we've got a reprieve right now. Hopefully that will be the case as we go into these night hours, and that we've gone through the worst as far as tornadoes and storm damage. You may have a long night in Central Florida. Deltec Homes, there we go. She's got it. Thank you. I knew it. I knew you'd pull through. So let's check out Deltec Homes. Unfortunately, their headquarters was in Asheville, North Carolina. God bless them. I hope they're okay. But these guys, if you're looking to build a home from scratch, especially if you're in one of these hurricane-prone regions, maybe even a tornado region, you may want to consider building one of these homes. It's not going to be that much more expensive than a conventional home, especially in today's day and age. But they are round homes, which I'm going to give credit to the old man Pistolero, the Camo, as you guys may know him on our streams. And there he is. He's hanging out here in the chat. Camo de la Vega. I'm putting you out there, old man, just so people know he's hanging out today. We're all right here. Yeah, you can buy it. Now, this is the shell price, so don't be confused that these houses are really cheap prefab homes. They're not. You're going to have to find a builder, contractor to build them for you, and land and all this stuff. So, they'll be a few $100,000 like any other home, especially if you live in a certain area. But they're round. The roofs are triangular and round. And if you build them to their highest standards, they can handle winds up to 190 miles per hour. And they're not made of concrete. So could you imagine a house like this built out of steel and concrete? It would be impervious to almost anything that you could find. So, and you can see how the designs are. Yes, I'm giving them a plug. This is a private company. Unfortunately, you can't invest in them, which if they were public, they would be a great investment right now. If you're looking at stocks, I think so. But futures and options trading involves substantial risk. Please go to a professional financial advisor. I'm not here to provide legal, financial, or any other sort of advice. Maybe just, hey, some products that I use that are pretty cool. Yeah, you get it to wind level 3. It can handle supposedly winds up to 190 miles per hour. I mean, that's going to handle almost any storm that you can run into. And we've seen examples of that. And they look pretty freaking awesome. I think a round home is sweet. They have some prefabricated designs. This is their biggest one. Or you can go to their design studio and build a custom one. And they look pretty, I think they look pretty nice. I really do. It's pretty sweet. You can go all Swiss Family Robinson if you want. Or go oval. So pretty cool stuff. Hopefully they're okay. Like I said, they're out of Asheville, North Carolina. It's a little bit unfortunate and ironic. Hopefully their studio was round and they didn't have any issues as well through the storm. God willing, they're good to go. But this is definitely an option if you're going to be living. And I think this will be the future. I really do. I think after all the damage that we've seen from storms, especially from storm surge, that we've been seeing on historic levels here, and maybe tonight we'll see more of that. Unfortunately, we'll see a lot of homes that are permanently damaged after this storm. This will be the future. Building a house that is elevated about 20 feet, maybe even more, and is made out of, made in this type of design. And that will lower your insurance costs and even better give you peace of mind so that you don't, even if you evacuate, you don't come home to the worst, which is your home being destroyed, which for pretty much all of us, it's the largest investment that we will make in our lives. And so it is a place that you want to remain secure and to remain intact. And I don't see a reason why spending a little bit more to get a house that that will be resistant to the type of weather that we see in different regions of the country. To me, it seems like a solid thing to do. So I would definitely consider that. Again, this is Deltec Homes. I'm sure that there are other companies that do the same thing, and it would be a great option for that. if you live in one of these storm-prone regions. So let's go back to Twitter real quick before we close up shop and see what we've got from the storm. So we've got a little bit more. Yeah, see, I see the mod extraordinaire had sent me Reed Timmer coming on shore earlier. Let's see if he's got even more videos. Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. Epstein memes over here. And you can follow Ryan Hall, Reed Timmer. They seem to be the top dogs of weather. They really were calling things before the Weather Channel or any of these experts for a while on what we could have expected from the storm. They were actually talking about tornadoes a lot and the potential there. They were covering a lot of that today. Again, this is Radar Omega, which is fantastic software. I'm a novice. I learned how to use this in 5 minutes. I watched, look, I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not an expert, but if you watch a lot of these weather tubers, you can learn a lot from them and you can start seeing some of the signs that let you know. And at a minimum, you'll get these weather alerts and you can expand them and they will let you see what's actually coming directly from the National Weather Center, National Hurricane Center, know what to expect and prepare for it without going to websites that are archaic. You can really see what's going on. You can help other people see what may be going on around them. And I think it's an invaluable tool. Again, it's anywhere between $6 to $12 a month. You can cancel at any time and, wait for the next hurricane season, the next storm season, anything like that. You can check the entire country and see what's going on here and track all the different storms. We can see right here Milton's track throughout its entire progress from its peak here as it went along to where it is right now as it makes landfall. We're nearing the 8 o'clock hour. So let's see before we end things here, where we're at and the progress of the storm and some of what we can expect as the night goes on. We can see Reed still hasn't updated. If you want to check out his stream, I would encourage it, or Ryan Hall. They're going to be going live throughout the night. So here's Reed Timmer. He's a storm chaser, a great meteorologist. He really called this storm extremely well as the time went on. He usually has this vehicle called the Dominator up here that you can see that's like an armadillo for chasing tornadoes and other storms. Right now he's rocking the Subaru Outback rental, which apparently he's destroyed a few of these. Go ahead and check him out. You can check Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall's another fantastic weather tuber. He's got a team of meteorologists out there. We're seeing Sarasota here. Some of the power flashes as Milton comes ashore. I'm sure the rental companies do love him. I'm sure he has spent a lot of money on deductibles, but he's doing the work that we love, right? We don't have to go out in these storms. We get to watch him do it. We get to watch Ryan Hall's team do it. Those guys are amazing. God bless them. We need men and women with brass balls to go out and show us just how serious this stuff is, and that aren't faking it. Like we know that a lot of these bigger weather channels do. A lot of times they've been exposed. So that's what we need. We need people on the ground that are actually doing the work. So here's some storm surge earlier. This looks like it was, this looks like it's Reed's channel here. So you can already see the storm surge coming up on the roads. And this is in Venice, Florida, where we saw earlier.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at that. They brought the lights with the taco, the storm taco.
Oh, fish. Fish? Yeah.
I wonder if with the flooding, if we'll see gators in the streets and things like that. So those are things you need to concerned about here in Florida too. It's not just the crazy weather, it's the crazy biology that we've got. We got sharks, we got fish of all types. We've got a lot of crazy stuff. We got gators, we got crocs, all over the place. Waffle House closed down. If the Waffle House is closed, that things are getting real. So it's good stuff. So again, I encourage you to follow all of these channels. I encourage you, if you're an enthusiast or you're just curious, check out Radar Omega. You'll see these guys using this software, and you can really learn a lot from them. It's very intuitive and user-friendly. You can use it on a tablet as well or your phone. I'm using it here for Windows. It's on Mac. Just for the alerts alone and being able to watch the storm tracks and radar in real time, I think it's fantastic. Yeah, let's check out that final update before we call it a night here on this particular channel. And we'll see what the National Hurricane Center is saying. Thank you, Experiment 626, for bringing it up. And I hope that you are okay tonight. I know that you're in Orlando, still holding at 120. So this is still a very powerful storm. It's going to be bringing up that surge. It's still moving at 15 miles per hour. So you'll be experiencing the effects of this throughout Central Florida and Northern Florida throughout the entire night. And hopefully when you wake up the next day, you'll be okay. That's really what matters most. Your family, your pets, your health. Obviously, hopefully your property is okay, but your lives matter more than anything else. Don't go outside unnecessarily. One of the biggest killers that we see is flying debris. You don't want to get brained. If you have to go outside for any reason, just wear a helmet. Wear safety goggles. You don't want to lose your eyes. You don't want to get brained and then fall and maybe get drowned or hit by more debris. Up north during the winter, you have to worry about black ice. Here you have to worry about water coming through and not seeing power cables. There's a lot of transformers that blow. There's a lot of cables that fall in the water. You can have debris that can stab you that you're not seeing. Wear boots if you go outside. If you have to go outside for any reason, you shouldn't do it until the storm is over. But even the next day, be careful for down power lines. If the power hasn't gone out yet, you may get electrocuted. I've heard too many stories of people dying that way. It's a tragedy. You don't want that. You don't want to be that guy. Believe me, your family won't forgive you for that. So, and I'm sure that you'll be having a conversation with Jesus and you won't even know it was coming. So that's not necessarily what you want to do. So thank you all so much, everybody, for hanging out here these last couple of hours. I know I'm not an expert meteorologist or anything like that, but I did want to take the time to talk about this storm, show you some equipment that you can use to prepare for the storm. Again, weather radios, batteries, solar panels, these are all great things. Water purification systems, emergency food. This is all stuff that you want. Craig Morning says if you eat the power line fast enough, it actually won't shock you. Well, hopefully none of you will want to test that. So I'd rather you be safe than sorry. So yes, check out Ryan Hall, y'all. Thanks for dropping that in there, Carla. We'll probably be back tomorrow night for some Fortnite. Definitely we'll be back on Friday night for sure. I'll be here with Camo, the old man, my brother Commander N, the uncle Doc Nieves. He's out right now. In the next few weeks, maybe we'll have a couple of special guests. I know that you guys have wanted to see Johnny 64 Zeltroid back in. He's busy with some good stuff right now. I'm sure that he'll let you know at some point. Hypnotic is always welcome to come back. He's busy slaying the woke mob in the entertainment space. So we've seen those guys before. Hopefully we'll see them again on this stream. Tom, thank you for stopping by. God bless you. I hope that everything is good with you and everybody else that lives in Central Florida or Tampa right now. We'll see what happens throughout the night. Good luck, everybody. God bless you. God bless America. And we'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe out there.